As we look at this concept of emotional intelligence, it makes up there are so many competency areas that make up this idea of emotional intelligence. Today, we're going to hone in on one of those areas called self-management, and one area under self-management called trustworthiness. Think about relationships that you have right now. Make a list of maybe the top 5 relationships that you have. And then go through and on a scale of 1 to 10, just kind of assess where do you think those relationships are in regards to trust. High 10, 1, somewhere in the middle. And what you'll find is that probably some of those relationships you've got a great level of trust with. Others maybe not so great, or maybe you're struggling a little bit to have the level of trust that's needed to be successful in those relationships. So what do you do about that? How do you go about and increase the level of trust? That's part of this idea of self-management. You can control that. You can do something about that. As I manage self, I can build trust with others that I might have lost or that I might need to increase. So part of what we're going to do today is share with you what makes up that idea of trustworthiness, and then you can make a self-assessment and begin to go work on how to increase that level of trust in those critical relationships that are most important to you. As I talk about this idea of trustworthiness, let me share with you some statements. And as you hear these statements, I want you to just pause for a second and answer the question in your heart and in your head as to how well you think you actually do that. Let's start with the first point. I act ethically in a consistent manner. So what does that mean? Well, to start off with, you need to have a grounded sense of ethics that you're working from, right? You have to know what they are. You can't act that way when you don't have clarity as to which ones are really important to you and which ones aren't. So to be able to do that, you need to make sure that you've spent some time to really identify what is truly important to you from an ethical perspective that you can then act consistently around to build that idea of self-management. Second point then is that I build trust in relationships and with others. Now, we're not going to go into it. We don't have time. That's a whole nother series of videos per se, is how do I build trust? But just know that if you aren't actively engaged and deliberate about building trust in relationships, you're probably failing or falling down in this area. So it's not just one thing to say that I have trust, or I could be trusted, or I have trust, people can trust me. It's what are you actually deliberately doing? That's why this is under this idea of self-management. It's things that you could be doing and should be doing to ensure that you are acting in trustworthy ways so that other people would choose to have trust and confidence in you. So we talk about number 3 now. This is hard for a lot of us. And this is to really be managing self. I need to be able to admit errors. I need to be able to admit that I've done something wrong. As I've learned in many, many lessons, probably the fastest way that I can build trust with my wife, with my kids, with people that are important to me, is to just admit when I was wrong and then apologize. I've learned that it's a lesson I've learned is to apologize quickly. Don't go and stew over it and figure out what you need to do, a month from now or a week from now. The moment that you know that you've done something, admit the error and then work to regain back trust. Another critical component of this is to be able to understand organizationally what's important, and from an ethical perspective, challenge the unethical behavior of others. Now you have to be careful here because you're not challenging the ethical behavior based off of your sense of ethics, but now as I'm working with other people and understanding the world that we're operating in, I need to understand where they're seeing the world and what they're viewing as ethical behavior. But I still need to be willing to be able to challenge that so that I can understand why they're making decisions that they're making or why they're doing what they're doing. And as I've done that over my life, it's been interesting. People are like, oh, I can't do that. Then people are going to come back at me. And based off of your intent, if you truly want to honor them as a human and build that trust, I've never had anybody be upset when I've come and asked them, so why did you do what you did? Or why are you doing what you're doing? Help me to understand what's behind that so that I can either support you or I can then have a conversation with you about why I don't believe that that's the way we should go. So the key to that whole conversation is that not to just go around challenging people's ethics, But to really build trust, I need to understand where they're coming from, and then at that point in time, have conversations with them about why and how they're doing the things that they're doing. And finally, let's bring some closure to this. It's really, are you willing to take and assume a difficult position, even though it might not be popular, it might not be where everyone else is going. For you to be able to manage self, you have to be able to be willing to not just challenge the ethical behavior of others, as we talked about, but being able to finally take a difficult position and maintain that difficult position, even though it might not be popular, which is really hard for a lot of us because we like to be part of. We don't like to be the person that is trying to be against where we're going. So it doesn't happen very often, but you have to be willing to be able to do that. And that's the key. So in essence, when we are looking at trying to manage self, which increases our ability to have higher levels of emotional intelligence, if you can work on these things that we've talked about, you can then begin to increase your capacity and your ability to be more effective in the relationships that are most important to you. So as we end, I'd like to invite you to subscribe. Come join us on these conversations, and we can learn and grow together. And if you have any ideas that you'd like to share with us, that you'd like to have a video created about, down in the comment section below, make some comments, let us know. And we'll be happy then to create more videos that would accommodate your needs and things that you're interested in. So now as we're working on this together, we want to invite you to come with us on our journey of helping us put the human back into humanity.